Okay, I want to quickly show an easy way to build a UI in Quarkus. I'm going to use this app as an example, or at least the backend of this app, and we'll build the UI as we go. This is just a to-do app, so it's just a bunch of to-dos. I've already got the app on my machine, so it has a to-do that is saving in a database. The database gets started up with dev services. It has a GraphQL resource that we don't really going to use, and it has a REST API that does CRUD operations. Right, you can get all, you can get one, you can create, update, delete. It also injects this event bus that every time it does something, it changes something, it will fire an event. Like for instance, it'll fire this event that a to-do has been added, or a to-do has been updated or deleted. So by default, without having to add anything to your form XML, you can add resources to the source main resources, meta-inf, and resources folder. So if I do that and I say create a new HTML file and call it index, and yeah, this should do it. If I save this and I go to localhost 8080, well, this is the default screen that you will get, which will be the index screen. But now it should show the oh yeah. Now when I go to make a domain, it will show our HTML that we've created. Okay, so basic HTML, but you typically want to use some other library, the UI library, to show things. One of the well-known ones is WebJars. So if you go to WebJars, you can go and find some library that you probably want. So as an example, Bootstrap. And then you can grab the part that you need to put in your POM. So we can add it somewhere here. So, and we can probably make the scope runtime, just because you don't really need it on compile time and it makes it easier to browse. I'll show you now why I say so. So now I have Bootstrap available. So if we go to Bootstrap's documentation, one of the things, they have a bunch of components, buttons and cards. So let's add a card just to add something. So this is how it should look like. I don't have the image, but we can add the rest of the cards. So if I copy this and add it to my HTML here, this shouldn't work because I haven't really imported anything yet, but it should already show the card. So what we need to do is add that style sheet, the Bootstrap style sheet, and the Bootstrap JavaScript. Now you need to know how to find that. So this is why I say putting it in runtime is easier, because you typically have quite a lot of things in your compile time dependencies. In here you can now see what the path is. So for instance, I can see that the CSS is in WebJars Bootstrap version number this CSS, and similarly the JavaScript file. So I then grab it from there, and now this will be served because this jar is in my runtime class path. So if I refresh now it's the rendered Bootstrap version 1. But one of the problems is this version number, because I want to be able to update my Bootstrap without having to change everywhere where I reference it. So we have an extension in Quarkus that used to be called the WebJar locator. It's now been renamed to the web dependency locator. So you can add that, the web dependency locator, save that, and then in your HTML, we can now remove this and this, and this should still work. Cool. You can also see in the dev UI, the web dependency locator will show you the libraries, and you can actually now in here find. So there's the Bootstrap CSS. So let's say we want to use this. I can just copy it here. Now, yeah, it's easy to find because that's the link, right? Now, similar to Maven NPN, similar to WebJAWS, there's Maven NPN, which is a project we created to also create these bundles of UI libraries, but with a small difference. In one, they are smaller than WebJAWS in most cases, sometimes even half the size, and they contain an import map, which we'll get to. And the other cool thing about this is that it will update automatically, where with WebJAWS, somebody needs to go and click the plus on the website. This will be updated by Maven NPN. So there's a schedule that runs, it checks for new versions of the things under its control, and it will update it and send it to Maven Central automatically. But cool. So let's copy. We're actually not going to use Bootstrap. We're going to, because I want to show web components, we're going to use Varden. Varden has got web components. So let me show that quickly. So Varden is known for the way in which you can build front-end using Java, but they have a very nice set of web components that is purely JavaScript components. But this is web components, so it's very nice to use this inside an app that you build with web components. And I use Lit to build it. So Lit is just a library that helps you building web components. So it takes away some of the boilerplate. So rather than extending HTML element, you will extend Lit element that extends HTML element, but then you get a whole bunch of stuff with it. And you implement the render method, and basically you have a way to do templating with Lit HTML, which is like this. So here I can reference variables, and now this variable, as soon as I update it, the render will be called again. So some process can update this property here, and it will update the page. So because Varden is UI components is built on Lit, we get Lit transitively. So anyway, let's change to use Varden components rather than Bootstrap in our POM, and we'll use it from Maven NPN. Okay. So yeah, and now if I go here, it will obviously not work because I've taken away Bootstrap. So if we change this then, and we say so because it's modules being web components, we will add them like this, and we say let's add a Varden list as an example. So Varden's got really good documentation. You can go to here, list. So let's add this as an example, and you can say show code. You can see I need to import this, and this is how I can use it. Right. So if we put that now in here, and take that away. Right, and we've imported. Now this shouldn't work yet because it should give us an error. So you see that it doesn't work, and if you go to more tools, web developer console, you'll see the error. It says the specifier Varden item was a bare specifier. So it doesn't know where this is. And this is typically, if you use front end, this is what the bundle will do. The bundle will map this correctly. But what you can do, and what you get for free out of the box with web dependency locator, is that we will also give you an import map. So if you just put this there, then this should now work. Right, so now it works. And if you go back to you if you UI, you'll see that we'll show you the import map that's been created. And one of the things that we add by default is a folder called app, so that you can put your own components inside app. You can configure what this should be. We show you that you can use this to get the import map. But basically, this does the mapping now. So you, again, you don't have to care about updating the versions. As soon as you update the version, this map will be updated with the new version edit. So this is not really a very interesting app. So let's show one of our own apps. So rather than importing Varden here, we'll say we want to import something called to-dos app.js. And here we will now use this to-dos app. Okay, so now we can go and create this. And we said it's going to be in a folder called app and a new JavaScript file called app. And yeah, like we said, we have lit, so we can make this a lit component. You can also just build a plain HTML element. But let's build the lit one. So I'll import lit element, which is what I'll extend. I'll also use the templating and I'll also style it myself. And I need to tell the DOM that there's a new element that can be used. So I do this. And because I now say that this element is available, this is why I can do this, because this is now an element that's available to use. Now in here, we want to, lit allows us to just add this method and then return what should be rendered. In our case, we want to use templating to create some HTML, and this is where the lit HTML comes in. And here you can write down any HTML. So let's say hello. So this should already be enough to change this to be showing hello. Yeah. Okay. So, but rather than doing that, we want to do that same what we've done previously with a list as an example. So we can now say, well, here output be the bottom list like this. And we obviously need to import that. Okay. So this should now be the list again. Okay. Just to show that you can also do your own CSS, so you can style your own component by just defining this variable, static styles, and inside there you can add things. So as an example, we can use the display, the flex layout, which is really cool. If you are building your own components, I can highly recommend using this. I use it all the time, and it's a very easy way to put components on a page. Let's just make the background red just to show that it works. Okay. You can also now here go inspect, and we can see what's happening. Actually happening is that our to-dos app, which is now our own custom element, renders in this shadow root that renders a Varden component. That's also a custom element. So in its own shadow root. And I can see that my to-dos app is styled with this background red. I can take the red away. I can do, what I typically do is I get it working in here because it's easy to just immediately see, how it looks like, and then I just copy this and put it in here. What host means is that I'm rendering myself. I can obviously also here render dot something, and that class, add that class somewhere, and that will be the CSS for that class, for that element. But this is not an interesting app, so let's build the actual UI for the to-do. So I'm going to cut and paste some things, and then we'll go through it slowly. I'll actually just paste it in here. drag it in here, and yeah, this one. And we'll go through it in a bit. I just want to show you how it looks like. So I have a bunch of components now because let me show it to you. Yeah, okay. I need some things. So I also have some images that is in static. Yeah. And this images is just the favicon, and then two Quarkus images, one for dark and one for light. Now, if we render it now, the image still doesn't render. Why not? Oh, no, this is correct. Yeah, it should work. Let me see. Okay, the image renders now because it should be under static. That's where I added it, and not under app static. So we can delete this. Now, what isn't working yet is the theme, and that's because I haven't added it to here, the HTML. Let me just show you the theme. So you can add this qualifier to this tag in the CSS to say that if it's dark, then use this, and if it's light, use this. And then in the HTML, we want to make sure that we have, let's say by default, we'll make it light, this. And then we need to add the CSS, but this is a good segue into showing what we've done to make this easier, because you do forget to add things in here. So what you can do is, rather than having to put your own import map in, add all your own modules here, add the CSS in here, you can just do this. And then we will take care of putting those things in. We'll scan and see what do you have, what modules do you have, what CSS do you have, and put it in there. But to do that, we need to do that during build, which means we need an opportunity to do that. So we'll move everything to a folder called web. So the build will then take it from web and copy it into where we had it now. So inside web, we'll have a folder called app, and we'll copy all of that in there. And we'll have a folder called static. Okay, so now we can get rid of that, but that will still be the end result. The build will copy it in there, but now the build will take this and replace it with all the imports that you have here. So import all of these, create the import map, set the CSS. So this should make this work now. Probably that's right. And it made it dark because it remembered my setting. I'll show that in a bit. But if you go to view page source now, you'll see that we've added CSS, we've added the import map, and we added all your modules. Okay. So one of the cool things that you can do with these themes is I've shown you the theme that we have, which is the dark and the light, and they use variables. So you'll see that in your components we will sometimes use these variables. You can go and customize this. If you use Varden, you can go customize this. So they have this theme editor where you can now go and edit theme, set all the colors that you want. You even have a few predefined ones that you can choose from. You have a light and a dark. And once you've created the theme that you want, you can click download, and you basically get what you've seen there. Right. So you'll put this part into the dark qualifier and the other one into the light. So that's quite cool. I've just used the defaults that comes with Varden. Then you'll see the layout here is basically we have a header with the theme switch. We have the middle part, which is the card that contains all these tasks, and then we have a footer that's pushed to the bottom. And the middle part here contains an input with a select all the tasks that needs to happen, and then a footer for the card. And that's reflected in here. So if we start with the HTML, hasn't really changed except for this. The app, which is this to-dos app, now imports these three things: the header, the cards, and the footer. So that's header, cards, and footer, and just adds them to the page. And with CSS, make sure that we use 100% of the viewport, which is why the footer has been pushed to the bottom. And basically the header, which is now an app on its own, is the one that does the theme switching. So here we look at that attribute, the theme attribute in the body tag, and we flip between the two. So we have the Quarkus icon, so this icon that changes depending on what the background is. And that we do because we render this image, but we render it with a variable name. And that variable name changes every time that we flip, so then this changes. And because it's a state, I say variable property, because it's a state property, it will re-render every time that it changes. And I also store it in local storage. Like I said, that's why I picked it up dark, because it remembered that previously I set it to dark. Then we have the footer. We quickly show the footer. That's fairly basic. The footer is just a bunch of links. So again, just a lit element. We define a new tag, and it just contains a bunch of links. So that's a fairly simple one, but the main thing then, the main work happens in this card. So this is quite a big component. Again, lit element, and use some var and stuff, and it then imports another component, because what we've done is that this middle part here, this is a component on its own. So this component takes care of rendering the checkbox, the name, and the delete, and it has the mouse event that makes sure that as a mouse moves, it shows the button. If you click, it fires an event that says something it's been selected, it's been unselected, it's been deleted. So the way in which you do that is, if you open tasks, you will see that I basically create an event called select and an event called delete, and then dispatch these events depending on whether or not that is clicked. And then where I use it, I put this on here, so I can just basically say somewhere I'm using this element. So I can say, yeah, for the select event, do this. For the delete event, do this. As an example, here we will go to the database and we'll say it's a patch method that you need to go and change the state, and a delete if you want to delete. You can also see here where we, if we click enter to add, so this is this handler, we do a post on the API to create a new card, and to get all, we also make a call. So as soon as it's render, you'll see that we do a fetch all tasks, and we will do a fetch an API. And all that we do is we basically set some variable with the tasks, and this is what we will render. So we actually render filtered tasks. So we call filtered task again, and then we decide what the filtering is to show the filtering. But if you look at where we use this, when we render the item, we just basically go through all the tasks and render the item. But as soon as this changes, it will re-render automatically. And that's what makes Lit so powerful and so quick, because it's just using the shadow DOM and just updating the shadow DOM with these values. So what else did I want to show? Yeah, so one of the things that I've added here just to show that it doesn't have to just use REST as a backend like we've done here. So you'll see here we use REST to get all of these. So all of this is a REST request that uses Page to go and do things. I also have a audit log. Let's see if it's working. No, oh, because I need to add that. So like I've mentioned, the every time on the backend that you add or delete or update a to-do, we also fire this event, and that event actually streams down a WebSocket to the client. And also to show that you don't have to just build single-page apps, you can build multi-page apps. We'll add another HTML called audit. We can use bundle again, and this time we just pull in this component, which is the to-do's audit log component. And this one now looks at that WebSocket. So as the starts, we connect to the WebSocket. And then as we receive events, we will again fire an event that gets used here that adds to the entries. So let's see if this now works. Yeah, so let's do this. And this. Yeah, so now you can see that the audit log works. And what happens is that if I click here, it makes a REST call to actually update the database. The database fires an event that gets streamed down to here, and it also responds here to this so that I can update this. So it's two different ways to communicate to the back. Now, one of the last things that I want to show is that if you look at inspect, so if we look at what actually happens here, is that we add quite a lot of things here. We add the input map script. That script actually creates the import map that you'll see here, which can be quite big. And we add the CSS and a few modules and so on. And if your app is big, this can become quite big. And apart from what you see here, all of this is also somewhere in your app, because this is inside a jar file and available for usage, right? So what you typically actually want to do is you want to bundle. So luckily, what you can do is you can now just use the web bundler. So we will go here and say, well, don't use the locator, use the web bundler. Save. It will restart. And if we refresh here, if we now say inspect, you'll see that it looks a bit different. We only have a script and a style sheet that's been created and bundled. But apart from that, everything works like before. And yeah, that's it. From a demo point of view, I hope that you can see that it's really easy to build a UI. Web components is really easy to build. You can also use, if you use the web bundler, you can also use TypeScript, and you can also use SCSS, although with variables, you have quite a lot of power with normal CSS. Yeah, the code is available inside that repo that I showed in the beginning. I'll go there again. So the code is available here. I don't think the audit log is there yet, but I'll add it soon. Cool.